All right. Real quick, let me go through what I've got and then get your guys' comments on it. I was talking to Jay about open world versus mods, and I've come up with some thoughts on it. First thought is, like, in real life, people who work for a company, much more numerous than the people who go, I'm going to start my own business and actually do it and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing I've noticed with the difference between players that can do open world and those that can't. And by open world, I don't mean, hey, we're now in the cyberpunk world or whatever. I know a guy who can give us a mission and then go do the mission. That's kind of a mod, but you're the one who instigates it. To me, I don't really consider that to be an open world type deal. That's more of like a choose your own adventure type deal. What I'm, just to clarify my terms, what I mean by open world is if Chris decides, for example, that he wants to set up a pizza business and shit just out of the blue. I mean, giving the GM notice, like, hey, Logan, I'm going to fucking set up a pizza delivery place. This is my whole thing. And, you know, I've got a plan and shit. And Logan goes, okay, I'm going to work on pizza delivery mods. For example, I'm not saying pizza delivery is a good idea. John, don't get that in your head. But for example, like the Spice Cartel, a good example of an open world thing. And Chris, before you blame anybody for Spice Cartel, other players said, you know, it was Chris's original idea. And I'm like, yeah, he kind of fucked himself there. So anyway.
Right, but I didn't want it to become like...
Oh, no, it became a season arc, dude. You created a season arc with it. It's your own fault. But anyway, going back to the open world thing. So there's very, very few people that can go literally create their own business and actually have it work. I think it's the same kind of deal with the people who can do a true open world experience and actually have it work. Most people want to be given at least a very strong hint as to this is the mod. The bad players are the ones that you kind of have to railroad toward the mod because otherwise they're not going to get that, hey, this is the mod. The really good players is like, we've heard this guy's name a couple of times. We should probably check him out. Chris is notorious for that. That's one of the things that he does, John, is like if somebody's name gets mentioned once, he writes it down. They get mentioned again, he underlines it. Get mentioned again, there's a fucking circle around it. And he knows this guy is important. We should fucking probably track his ass down, find out what's up. Because he's good at taking hints. A lot of people aren't. They're like, he keeps mentioning Baron Toby. I don't know Baron Toby. He's mentioned 12 times. I don't know him. I don't care. You know, and that's that. But so that's my definition of an open world versus a mods type thing. And I've noticed with a lot of players with the open world thing, if they are, to use the analogy, employees rather than entrepreneurs, that it kind of fucks with them to try to run in an open world thing. It becomes as I forget which player said, Ralph. As Ralph said, they kind of go around and tickle different things. It's like, what about this over here? Oh, that looks hard. I'm gonna go over here. What's this? Oh, that looks hard. And they wander around and shop for things they can't afford to buy, or don't think they can afford to buy. I mean, there's some characters that are really like combat powerhouses, and that makes it a lot easier. You feel a lot more comfortable knowing that if you get into some shit, you can end some shit, like Chris's character, Matt's character. Is there any more powerhouses? No, Bargain Man's not what I'd call a really combat powerhouse. I'd call him in the competent range, but he's not in the I can take down a bunch of guys and shit. You know, he's in the realistic competent range as opposed to, you know, I've taken out like small dragons on my own type competency range. Which, you know, Chris is taking out not like a dragon, but I call it like
he's Megadoc. I mean, what the fuck?
Right. Well, without going Megadoc, Megadoc's something that that's one of the things Chris is really good at, is he knows that what he's got is really powerful, limited because he can't use underground or he'll just kill himself. But he knows that if he overuses it, then that would be bad. So he saves it up for those very, very special occasions where it's like, I've got to do Mega Doctor. I can't see any other option. And because of that, he ends up keeping that fucker for longer. And it's just an arrow in his quiver as opposed to, I have a hammer, everything's a nail.
But we would have got killed if we were fighting that Kraken that one time on a beach if he didn't do Mega Doc.
Right. Well, that's a good example of I can't see any other way to do this other than Mega Doc. So, I mean, he's only done Mega Doc, I think, 2 or 3 times.
Yep.
And if you think about just how powerful that is, it makes him a giant fucking Mega Doc robot thing. But getting off that thing for a minute, Chris, what are your thoughts on, as I've set up the definitions of the terms between open world and mods or adventures, what are your thoughts, Chris? I'll get to John in a sec here, but I want to get Chris's thing.
I mean, I totally understand like that whole analogy. Like it makes sense. Like some people just want to go shopping, and like this is what they're gonna like. We want X. We want to go get some burgers, so they're gonna go to McDonald's and they're gonna get their burger. Where like I want to go to the grocery store and make whatever the fuck I want to make, and depending on what I do while I'm there, makes the mod for my adventure day when I'm playing. Like even when we went like last weekend, like it's funny because I always say that like I don't like to like because this season, the past couple seasons, I've been working a lot, so I kind of let the other players do what they're gonna want to do. But at the same time, like if it just gets silly, I'll be like, and I'll put my suggestions out, which is why last weekend we got done the little thing. I'm like, let's just get this done so we can go get some big shit done too, or at least look into some of the big shit, or you know, get on that way of doing that shit.
Which little thing were you talking about?
We did we had the. It was when we became the different people and we did the mystery. I don't want to give too much away because you know.
Right. No, the mod. You were on the mod, and you
we're on the mod, and I was like, and I was like, all right, well, this is. I figured, you know what, we can hammer this out, and then hammer some important shit out. And I think Russ was he was like, why are you always so crazy about these little things? And I'm like, because they're so little, I don't care. Like, I do care, but I don't, if that makes sense. Like I want to, I understand we all need to get our mods in. We need to, you know, get a little bit more experience in, but we still have the big world to think about. And a lot of times we get focused on the little things. Like everyone is going to McDonald's and getting their Happy Meal. Well, I want to go out and like have Friendsgiving, and like, and I want to make. Go ahead,
John. Is there some wild shit going on in your house?
Orgy.
It sounds like it. Yes.
I'll mute it.
Okay. Cool. Okay, Chris, you brought up a good point with the open worlds also, as opposed to mods, unless the mod is specifically written for big shit, which usually they're not, because you don't know when the players are going to go after big shit. Unless the mod is written for big shit, the mods are usually written for smaller plot hooks or smaller, like just missions that may or may not have any follow-up, whereas open world stuff, that's where you can literally change the world more.
Yeah, indeed.
John, what are your thoughts on the open world versus missions?
So the open world, from what I get, is doing all these scenarios that are taking place that we have to figure shit out, or else the universe is going to crash. Pretty much, correct?
That's one way to put it, yes.
And okay, so
that.
Well, my personal opinion is the mods are cool. If like in my situation, I can't game a lot because of my work schedule, so mods are pretty cool. But in the same token, I like to do the open world because I like to figure shit out too. I'm not always and not saying anything bad about the characters, but like Chris said, some people just want to get certain things, and I've spoke before where I want to go out and I want to explore. I want to figure shit out. Maybe take some new things. But also with that, not being able to game a lot, I miss a lot of the open world. And actually, it sucks. Like I really like the game, and I have a great time doing it. But it's you kind of get upset a little bit when you can't game because you're seeing on our boards, you're seeing all the people figuring stuff out and getting like the ice creatures, whatever the heck that was. Like I came into that and I was like, well, what the hell is this? But it sounds like it's really cool. So, mods are cool. They're fun. It's what, either or it's what you make of it, to be honest with you.
You bring up another good point there. One of the things that people seem to like about mods as opposed to open world is, thank you, John, is that with a mod, there is a definite beginning, middle, and end. There is, the setup, conflict, resolution. And it's not designed in like the 3-act structure necessarily, but you get the little bit of dopamine for, we figured this out, we solved this, we completed this. With the open world, it may just be we went somewhere else, we went somewhere else, we saw, which is fine because with the open world stuff, there's a lot of scouting involved. And that's super critical because the players are, some are better than others at giving information to other players or other groups, and some are worse. Chris knows what I'm talking about. But just so you know, John, nobody gets to game as much as they want except Freddie, because Freddie has a pretty relaxed schedule. I think he lives at least part-time in my world, which is cool. But he's also like, everybody has different strengths and weaknesses as a player. Like your biggest strength, John, is that you are one of the most enthusiastic motherfuckers we have. I don't know why you're so enthusiastic. I love it that you are, but you're like, let's do it. Let's go. Yeah. And everybody's like, okay. He's into this. He may not know what we're doing, but he wants to do it. And everybody's like, you can't, because enthusiasm often wins. As far as like, oh, it's John's character. They don't say, what's his strengths and weaknesses? They go, he's the excited motherfucker, just wants to do whatever we're doing a lot. And that's cool.
That helps a lot. It helps more than you might think it does, because there's times where a lot of people, we have some people that get really bogged down in the details, and then Chris starts getting frustrated, and then if you're there, you're like, let's go, let's do this, and then they're like, oh, it's like wakes them up, and then boom, we're off doing stuff instead of.
Chris, put your mic closer to your mouth, sir.
Is that better?
I don't know. You haven't gone on to a tirade yet.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
Do another tirade.
Oh my God! And then it worked, and it was great.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Chris's strengths and weaknesses are totally different. Like, I think that his strength is that he's just a good general all-around gamer, and he's entertaining while he's figuring shit out. He has a lot of lore. He figures out a lot of shit, but he's a funny motherfucker. So,
I mean, with me being fairly new to the Anytime Anywhere world, I like Pete and then Chris. I like the game with them guys a lot. Jan is great. I'm afraid she might try to kill me one day, but again, with me being new, these guys have gamed a lot longer than I have, and like you said, the enthusiastic part of me, I like to go out, and so I care less what we're going to do as long as I got Megadoc on my back. We're good. But that's why I enjoy this world. I don't know, maybe gamed a dozen times or more, and I met some really great people. Yeah, so I try to game as much as I can, as long as it don't get me a divorce. But
Right.
yeah. So
Yeah. Don't get Wi-Fi, girl. No, it's not worth it.
She's not here right now, so. But no, this is a great world, and for anybody who watches this, regardless as to what you do, whether it is a mod or an open world, get a chance to do both. I mean, and if you can game, it doesn't matter. You're going to have a great time. I mean, the mastermind Logan himself and some of these other guys that are GMing that I've watched have done some pretty good jobs.
Oh yeah, I really like that we've got the guest GMs. Chris, you need to fucking guest GM. John, I'd be very curious to see what you got, because I know that you've run like other kind of campaigns and stuff like that. So
I'm trying to.
Oh yeah, well I'd like to see what you bring to the table. And Chris has no excuse, because he's GM'd a bunch. He just doesn't want to because he wants to play, and I get that. But it's a fucking potluck. Everybody brings something to the table, bitch. But I don't know. It's a weird thing, because a lot of the players, I'm not going to name names and stuff, but a lot of players are like, no, I'm good with open world. But when they get into the open world, that they're lost. They're lost. I mean, Bargain Man, as soon as he was initially lost because he doesn't know the world and stuff well, but he is what I call a glom honor. Like Freddie was like, we're going to do the Spice Cartel. And Bargain Man's like, we're going to make it the best Spice Cartel ever. He'd never heard about the Spice Cartel before, but as soon as he did, he wants uniforms. And, and I'm like, okay, let's do it, So
Very true.
But I think that it's kind of, in a way, the open world thing, in a way, is a lot like the first, like if you've taken somebody that's only done the McDonald's of tabletop gaming, which is D&D, and you say, okay, this is a new system, there's no classes. And they go,
and you want to beat feet.
Yeah, what am I supposed to be? Do you guys need a cleric? I mean, there's no clerics.
Yeah, that's how I came into the system. Like you're told to make a character, you're given the formula that it is, and then you're kind of like, okay, well, I want to make this kind of character. And when I spoke to you about doing that, it's kind of like, well, there is no character. Build a classic character, I should say. Just make your person, and you'll find your own way in the world. So it's been an interesting ride. What is Bargain Man? I don't know. A little bit of everything, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also what you think your character is going to be is not necessarily where you're going to end up, depending on how often you play. If you play once a month or whatever, which is fine, then you're going to probably not change that much. But if somebody who gets into it like once a week or more gaming or whatever, your character can completely change. It's like, well, I used to be a cop and now I'm the assistant of death. It's like, what? And not talking like fighter. I mean, like anthropomorphic death or whatever. I mean, that happened to, I think, Matt at one point or something.
Yeah, I'm not even like the spells part of it. I can care less about that stuff, although it probably would help us. But when you game with these other guys like Chris and Freddie and them guys and Pete, they have that stuff. So honestly, if you're not one of those persons that are in the spells, you have these other people that we game with. You know what I mean? And if I get them, I get them. If I don't, I don't lose any sleep over it.
Oh yeah, well that's one of the nice things, is that you're not really behind the eight ball if you don't have magic, or if you don't have special superpower amberite stuff or whatever. You're not fucked. Like Jason's a good example. He came into it, he had none of that shit, and he's like, I'm a merchant, and people are like, oh, we've been waiting our whole lives for a merchant, a businessman. We have so much for you to do. He's like, I don't know. So, Chris, do you have any more thoughts on open world versus? Because I'm going to give this copy of this to John Four, who makes a newsletter and stuff. So I was thinking he might enjoy hearing any more thoughts on actual open world versus mods.
I'd also say that, like with open world, because I know the cues to look for with you, it makes it easier. And if people start thinking about those cues, like they go to the open world and they're like kind of like poking around, but then they hear something a couple times, or they hear of a place a couple times. That's a big cue that a lot of people do miss out on, that they really should be listening for, because that's gigantic with, you know, the whole way that you game. Like that's definitely something that I've learned through the years, is like you need to watch, you know, listen for those little hints.
Yeah, knowing your GM is a huge part. Which, before I get to John, just reminded me of something. With open world, like with a mod, prep precedes playing. With open world, it's the opposite. So in other words, like let's say John wanted to build a spaceship repair yard, as an example. If he keeps pushing at that enough, then I'm going to go like, okay, he actually seems to be like really into this. And then like there, and he gets money or is given money or whatever by our players or something. And then he says, I'm setting up my spaceship repair yard. At that point, I begin to prep the spaceship repair yard stuff more. At that point, I go, okay, what kind of mods would a spaceship repair yard have available? Because I don't want to just be like, he goes, how much money did I make this month? Nobody fucking cares, really. That's not going to, in 10 years, when John's looking back at this campaign, he's not going to go, I made so much gold, I made a suit of it. No, nobody cares. It's like, what kind of interesting shit? And he's going to have like these kind of skeevy guys coming in going, yeah, we need a spaceship repaired. And you're like, I think you're pirates and you got shot up and something. I'm thinking whether I should turn you in or make you a regular customer, you know. And so those kind of mods come up after the interest has not just been expressed, because players lie all the time with that, and they don't know they're lying. They're like, you know, I'd like a spaceship repair yard. And so you do a bunch of prep for a spaceship repair yard, and they never mention it again. This has happened so many times that I'm like, unless somebody really just pounds that spaceship repair yard, I'm not fucking prepping it, because it's a waste of time. They're never going to go do it again. But if they keep hitting it enough, like the Spice Cartel is a good example. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, pretty much some of the players were like, we need money. What can generate us a lot of money, works in all time periods, and is backpack portable, because we have no idea how to actually make a trade route. We'll do spices. Spices, you know, are lightweight, and you can carry a bunch of money worth and do stuff. And so they came up with that, and it ended up becoming a season arc, which made Chris sad. So, John, what are your thoughts?
Again, I was still an open world mod thing. I mean, they both have a plot and an ending, but you know, with the mods, once you reach that, it's done. Where this open world, you know, you reach the plot for that open world scenario. There's it's like, you know, you're sitting in front of 3 or 4 doors, and you open one to continue, and you can always come back and go somewhere else. Which, you know, not having an ending, and it actually makes you want a game even more, because again, when you're checking out these boards and you see that, well, they started out here per se, like we do the Spice Cartel thing, and then this happened off of doing that episode. You're like, man, I'm gonna get back in there and do it. It's like that to be continued show. Like you're really into it and you're watching it, and then that to be continued pops up, and you're like, ah, you know. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. Like you can't wait till next week. You got to make sure nothing's on your schedule that week. You got to make sure you're there, and that's the best part about it. And I've played Star Frontiers. I played Dungeons and Dragons. Started doing Call of Cthulhu, but by far Logan's thing is absolutely amazing, and I try to game as much as I can. I mean, who else? I don't know of anybody else who can set up games for a whole year, Thursday through Sunday, and run the way you do it. It's absolutely amazing, and that's why I'm happy to be a part of all this.
Yeah, it helps with my constant drinking and shit. But yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, in regards to the doors thing that you brought up, it's there's I think that just the sheer number of doors for the people is what causes a little bit of a meltdown, because they get to the, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know. I think with the open world, the big thing is you've got to have a definite thing that you're trying to accomplish. Because just to get a little bit philosophical, in real life, if I say to somebody, what are you wanting to accomplish? I just want tomorrow to be kind of like today was and continue trudging forward. I mean, that's really, they'll say a lot of our stuff, but all of their stuff that they're talking about is usually fairly intangible, right? It's like, oh, I want more money, I want to be happier. That doesn't do anything. Very few people go, I want to play with a Philharmonic orchestra, for example. Because if you meet somebody like that, then it's very easy to say whether that person will or won't. If they're practicing their instrument every day for hours every day and they're just hitting that shit over and over, there's a chance that they might. Or with some other orchestra, or maybe they're working their way up toward that Philharmonic orchestra. But if they occasionally just mess around on their instrument and then set it aside for a month or whatever, they're not. No, it's not going to happen. And it's the same thing with an open world thing. If you don't have something definite you want to do, like if I was to ask Chris, what's one definite goal you want to accomplish in the open world campaign that we're doing here? Just one goal.
One goal? Definitely need to make my way to the Courts of Chaos.
Right. In order to...
So I can find that, we need the unicorn's eye so I can make a Logris. That's
there you go.
That's my goal.
Yeah, he's got that goal as a definite thing. Basically, he's wanting to make another Logris pattern. That's his goal, and it's a very distinct goal. It's easy to state. John, do you have one specific goal that you're wanting to accomplish?
No. You know what? I guess the best way I describe myself and doing a goal is to help everybody else achieve theirs. Like, again, Chris and them guys game a lot, so I'm kind of like your supporting actor, I guess you want to call me, Bargain Man. So I could care less where we go. If Chris wants to, get this unicorn's eye, let's do it, man. If Freddie wants to do this, let's do it. If Pete wants to do that, let's do it. So my goal is to help everybody else achieve their goals. Again, I'm not on here enough to, per se have a specific goal as of yet. I just like gaming, and I'll help these guys do whatever.
Well, that's commendable, but I would argue that even somebody who doesn't game a lot could have a specific goal. Like, for example,
I do have one.
What's that?
I got to kill the dwarves.
The dwarves are prepped, but I mean, you like as an other example, you could say, I want to set up in these 3 different zones. Something so I don't have to worry about money. I want to make like a little, I want to rent a storage facility or bank box or something like that so I can stash some money. So if I get stuck in that zone, go there, get the money, and not have to worry about shit. Little goals are okay too. I mean, Chris has got I want to alter the cosmos goals. I'm not saying that players need to have these goals. Okay. You can have bargain man size goals, which I want to have transport that I know how to operate in every zone, for example. I want to become the driver of every zone or whatever. I mean, because while helping everybody's good, I would also like to make it so that you can do something that's yours.
Like I said, the only thing, I haven't been as on as much as these guys are. Like I said,
Doesn't matter. We've got people who play once a month.
It doesn't. Yeah, and so I guess my I wouldn't call it pinnacle, but I think it was with I don't know if it was Peter or Chris when we went through the Dragon's Ash. That's where I got killed.
Yeah.
And so that I don't know if you want to call it. It was like a sanity thing with me, but having that near-death experience, or which I did, it brought up this thing where I have a habit. Well, not habit, but I want the dwarves dead because so that was kind of like my top thing right there. But there's like I said, there's other things. I mean, I was a part of the Spice Cartel when we got that running. Yeah, I mean, when I find the opportunity, but right now, just that one scenario with the dwarves is the big thing. So maybe something else will pop up, and whether it's the mod or the open season, where something else could trigger off.
Just a little bit of explanation for people that are watching this who don't have any idea of what's going on in the campaign before I go over to Chris and find out the next topic he's just talking about. See, I'm giving him time to think about shit while I talked about this. There's, I think, over a dozen, 12, 15, something like that, different fairly regular players that play in this, and they play it in groups of 3. They're semi-random. People sign up when they want to. On the schedule, and so then you're in a group of 3, and it's not always the same 3. Which, if you were in a open world campaign, I think that you're playing with, if you're playing with the same people every week or whatever, it'd be much easier to figure out the open world because you know what everybody else wants all the time. But with this, it's like you put in random other people. Okay, we're with Yana, and we're with Sheila, and we're with Chris. What do they want? They all want different shit. None of them know what each other want. Figure it out. If players are clever, they can communicate through Facebook Messenger or whatever ahead of time and go, hey, we're going to be playing on this date. Does anybody have anything they want to do? Let's negotiate for stuff. Also, in this campaign, there's different zones because it's a multiverse. I call it zones because I played too much EverQuest in the day. So did Chris. Represent. But so instead of different areas of the land, like in EverQuest, different areas of Norath, instead you got like this area is the Old West, but with furries. This area is post-apocalyptic cyberpunk. This area is futuristic. This area is medieval, etc. So it's I think that for 2 reasons this campaign is much harder than, aside from the players. Okay, for many reasons this campaign is much harder, and I think that makes it more intimidating for other players. Like for example, one of the things is that you're playing with different people, which is cool because, as Bargain Man or John said, that he gets to meet a lot of very cool people. But so that makes it hard. It's a multiverse. That makes it a lot harder. You're dealing with galactic powers as well. That makes it harder. And there's literally thousands of hours of plot that have gone on. That makes it harder because there's other shit going on. And stuff from seasons past that you may not have even played in may be influencing what's going on. That makes it a little harder.
Campaigns past, which makes it even harder.
Right. Yeah. I did a very cruel thing by having some stuff that happened more than 10, 15 years ago suddenly, like in this campaign, and Chris was like, you motherfucker. So
I kind of saw it, but I wasn't sure, and because I was like, well, it's a different campaign. Like that doesn't make sense. Like who does that?
Would never do that.
Yeah.
So Chris, what you got for next thing that you want to talk about? John's coming up after your topics.
Well, that's actually like a part of the big thing is like knowing like I don't understand like so this is like definitely one campaign where if you're not taking notes, you're not doing it right. Now I learned that a long time ago in your campaigns, but I cannot believe some of the like some people still don't take notes, and I get it. Like you want to ride, like maybe that's your character thing. You want to ride by the seat of your pants or whatever, and I've done that too, but there's just too much going on. And if you want to get those, like if anybody is kind of apprehensive about the whole, open world concept, that's one way to, take it back basically, is if you're not, looking into it a little bit more proactively like that, you're not going to make it.
Well, I see what you're saying, but I think that making it has different levels of making it. You're not going to probably become one of the movers and shakers of the campaign if you're not taking notes. But like if you're doing something like John is, where you're just trying to support everybody else, it's less note taking required. But also, if you think about it, in most people's campaigns, notes is actually, it's something that, like, if you can remember the name of the guy that you're supposed to kill, the GM gets warm and fuzzy. Because honestly, in most campaigns, it doesn't matter. And people, I think there's a lot of games out there where people have been trained that, it really doesn't matter if you remember the name, if you don't remember the name. It doesn't matter, because it's a very basic. I'm not saying that everybody else's plots are very basic and mine is not. I'm not saying that at all. But the GMs will, rather than harshly punishing the players for not bothering to take notes, or having just horrible crap happen to them and stuff, because like, oh, I thought we were supposed to kill this guy. No, he's the guy you're supposed to save. But the GMs kind of give them a pass or the briefing ahead of time or something. Here's what happened last session, because last session was 3 weeks ago or something.
Oh my God, that started happening with Seth's campaign.
Really?
They would. Well, because I mean, everybody works, and I get that, but like
Mhm.
he would literally sometimes have to skip a week, and now I'm getting random shit about what happened 2 weeks ago, and then it's D&D, so like half the people are role players, and the other half like are ex-Nero players, so they play in a different style, which is great, which is what I liked, but at the same time, it just kind of became, oh, this guy wants the loot, and like. The metagaming was so gigantic. I was just like, oh, like honestly, if I wasn't playing with Seth and Brian Slocum, I would have bounced long ago. I'd be like, nope, I'm done. This is dumb. Bye.
Well, just so you know, John, when we refer to Nero is a LARP, a live action role playing game. Are you familiar with those?
I've seen it. I've seen the terminology or the abbreviations for it. So yeah.
Well, to give the very condensed version, people dress up in costumes. You physically role play your character. You physically fight. You physically cast spells, usually with small packets of like beanbag, birdseed, stuff like that. And it's, in some ways, it's a lot harder because like I can't throw for shit. Really. And I'm playing a spellcaster, which means that I had to become a healer, because people who I was throwing spells at would do their best to make sure that they would interpose their body onto the path of that spell. Even if they were supposed to be unconscious, they would do their best. And if I was playing an offensive spellcaster, then, we're all doomed, because I'm not going to be able to hit the monsters trying to dodge shit. But as far as this campaign goes, this campaign is a lot like a Nero campaign, a LARP campaign, because in a LARP campaign, you have a huge number of people. It can be hundreds of people. And there can be a score of different groups, and the groups normally stick together. But what will happen is, like, group A will find out some stuff, group B will find out some stuff, group C will find out some stuff. Now, if group A, B, and C all combine their stuff, they go, this is the obvious and easy answer. We have solved this thing. The trick is that they never, ever will, because group A and group C have always hated each other and have robbed each other in the past. Group B doesn't trust A and C because, reasons. And so they're all going to keep their crap separate. And because of that, they take what used to be a fairly simple, straightforward solution and make it into this Machiavellian complexity of shit that will never, ever get figured out and will become a bigger ball of shit over time until eventually it squishes the town as it rolls by. This same thing is happening in my campaign, and I love it because people like Chris, if he's playing with the same people every week, he can roll through my plots like that. He just, all right, Logan, what else you got? We've killed this guy who I figured out was the bad guy despite him pretending to be the good guy. Fuck you. What else do you have, bitch?
That might be like, and I'm not saying it's a bad flaw, but when you say you grouped A, B, and C, and we don't coordinate things with each other to get shit done, so each group, they want to, like you said, they have their own agenda. So if you're top three gamers like Chris, Pete, and Rihanna, whoever, from the last time they played, they want to get stuff done. But like you said, if they go on the boards and coordinate it, which I haven't seen it happen yet. I've seen you post it. I've seen you post on there to, before you guys game, why don't you guys get together, and it makes things easier for Logan. I've seen that, so I read the boards. Yeah. But and the other thing, like Chris said, with note taking, my first game, I think I've gamed with Chris, and it was a big topic of taking notes. And I've always taken. I've even taken notes from the mods because, Christ, with Logan, part of that mod might be the answer to the open season, if I'm not mistaken. Good. But so now it's not a bad flaw, but maybe we should start listening to Logan's advice and start plotting out things and whatever.
Oh God, no! Don't do that. Believe me, I think that although it's frustrating to people like Chris, because Chris, one of his deals is that he is what I think of as a problem solver. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's also a scene maker. Like Matt is less problem solver, more scene maker. Chris is a little bit less scene maker. He does some scenes, don't get me wrong, but problem solving and figuring shit out is high on his list of things. Chris is even less, or sorry, not Chris, Pete is even less of a scene maker, although he does do some scenes, but he is big time problem solver, right? So everybody's got different things. But I like it when the players have stuff going, like, for example, Chris knows how to talk to Amberites because he has had long and painful training on this shit. And like in the old days, 10, 15, 20 years ago, something like that, when Matt was a brand new player, Matt was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And Chris is like, and he kind of like leaned over to Matt and whispered, because it was live and we were all in the room, he's like, shut the fuck up. And then Matt was like, blah, 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 blah. And the Amberite was like, oh, yes, we should get together. And Chris is like looking at him like, I will fucking murder your character and you, and nobody will find either body. And Matt was like, I'm not talking anymore. But now Matt knows because he has learned how to talk to Amberite. And so recently, Chris discovered that Pete was like, blah, 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 blah. And Chris was like, pardon? He said, what? Everything? Because Chris knows the value of information. He knows that even if he wanted to give all that information to the Emperor, he could trade that information for other information and do the political stuff and get something from it, as opposed to, here's all my cards. Do I win or do you? Oh, you do. That's nice. I had a fun. Yay, I like gambling.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, gentlemen. My son's started jujitsu and you're trying to get his outfit on.
I've done jujitsu. It's a good martial art.
Yeah. So.
As long as you're muted, that's all good, because if he talks in the background, we won't have him on recording forever. But let's see, was that it for your topic, John?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, again, I'm a supporting actor here, but I mean, it's a great world, and we're looks like we're getting more people to join in with this, and it's great, you know. Maybe a little less time for other people, maybe even Freddie. But,
Right.
you know, I look at my schedule, and just like Chris was working and stuff, you know, it's, you know, trust me, I think if people gave this system, this game, maybe more than one try, it's almost like crack, man. You'll get addicted. Like, I love this. I love the game system. Like I said, I didn't do a whole crap load of gaming stuff, but this is one system that I really look forward to playing as much as I can. But with that, I got to take my son to jiu-jitsu.
You have a good night.
Listen, everybody out there, you got to get on this anytime, anywhere. It's great. Great place. Logan's mods and open thing is phenomenal. Chris has got a great character. Pete and Matt and everybody. It's phenomenal. And just want to wish everybody a happy holidays if I don't see you all.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Take care, guys.
See ya.
Cool. So what else is on your mind, Chris?
Oh, well, you had said that you wanted to talk to me about something about, like, the way I, like, when I play or some other stuff. Do you remember that or no?
Let me have another sip of my giant glass of wine. Felbrig asked me, he's like, what the hell is that you're drinking out of? Because when I'm not gaming, it's Coke or whatever. And I was like, that's my glass. I like to have a glass of wine at night. And he's like, that's a big glass. I'm like, it's a liter. One glass of wine every day does the health good. And so I have a glass of wine every day. I just have a bigger glass than most people do because I am Logan. I'm not sure what I was talking to you about as far as the thing. No, I've lost it.
Okay. Well, it was a couple days. It was like last week, and it was kind of late for you.
Oh God.
I wasn't sure if maybe you'd remember.
Now I'm if you say the right thing, it will cue me off, and I'll go, oh, blah 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 blah. No, I'm honestly, I like it that the players don't communicate with each other. I mean, they do somewhat, but it's just like a Nero event where it's like, all right, somebody even told me, I don't remember who, it may have been you, maybe been somebody else, that they're getting about a third of the information, and they realize that. I'm like, yeah, I think a third's generous, but yeah. And then it's like, okay, go on that. I think it's Jason. And the funny thing with Jason is that he's got plans, he wants to do stuff, and he's getting really spotty reports at best. And the other players even realize that they should give him good reports, and then they don't. Like Freddie's like, oh yeah, I'd really make Razzle and Rad happy if I was to go find out prices of this. And so rather than distract him, I was like, cool, let's see how this plays out. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds nice. And then they distracted themselves. And I was like, that's beautiful. And they wandered off onto some completely other random bullshit. It was like there's a spinning wheel. It had all the different possible things they could do, and they're like, we should definitely help Rosalind. Too bad we're going over here. Instead, we're going to go check out the giant worm. Yeah, giant worm. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
Not even kidding. It was just that quick. And I was like, yeah, because I'm just imagining if Jason was actually listening to this. Because do you realize that the mods that we're running now, I think are in, I think that they'll be heard in around April of 2021.
So a little bit from now.
Yeah, like about a year and a third, roughly.
So a little. Wow. Okay.
Well, I figured when I started doing the 1 hour per day regular comes out, I thought this would be cool because that way, if somebody was like keeping up with it, for example, they could listen to. I should have done this live, by the way, to get comments and stuff. That would have been fucking clever. I could actually do that. I could end this broadcast and start a new one.
If that's what you want to do, that's fine.
Yeah, we'll go live. Hold on a second.